Welcome to the Twisted Tentacle Tavern. I am your innkeeper, Vase Odin, and in this third and final video of my trap series, we're going to talk about extremely complex traps that can serve as the final boss of the dungeon. Let's get started. So in the last two videos, we discussed basic traps and the more complex traps that were introduced in the Dungeon Master's Guide and Xanathar's Guide to Everything. Today, I want to talk about what I like to call legendary traps. So these are traps that are really complex. They have multiple moving parts, and they can serve as the ending to a dungeon. They're a lot of fun. They're kind of create almost like a battle for the players to deal with. So it creates a lot of dynamic elements. There's a lot of moving parts, and the players have to deal with a lot of stuff with them. So one of the ideas that I had for a legendary trap is, of course, taking the concept of the complex traps where we'll roll initiative and the trap will have its own bonus to initiative, but it'll also act on another initiative count. So say initiative count 10. So you'll have one trigger or one effect happening on initiative count, let's say 20, and then another in initiative count 10. The trap usually will have multiple areas of the room where things are being set off, and they have to be disarmed individually. So the players will have to solve each individual aspect of the trap and disarm them that way. But in addition to that, the trap will also have like legendary actions. So at the end of each player's turns, they may dispel a player character's buff spell, or they may cast a web spell to try and stop the players from disarming it. So the trap has certain elements that are protecting itself from being disarmed while it still does its thing, whether it's shooting poison gas or whatever other things that it's doing. And that's one cool way to do it. Just don't overuse it, because the players don't have ways to kill these other legendary elements that are happening. So make sure that the legendary elements are not something that's overly punishing. It'll just slow the players down, or it'll increase defenses. Maybe it'll throw an enemy into the mix for the players to deal with. Those kind of things are the things that we're thinking about here. Don't just keep stacking on more and more difficult things for the players to deal with to the point where it's impossible for them. So the players then can, or the characters can then go to each part where the trap is being triggered and disarm it that way using their skill rolls. Or you can do what we talked about last video, where they have the multiple skill rolls for each one. That'll make it a longer combat or a longer encounter, where each section of the trap, they have to do multiple disarming. Now, another way that I've come up with in terms of disarming the trap, so it doesn't feel like it's just based on one die roll, is to give a trap disarm points. So instead of using multiple skill points or multiple rolls, if a character has a really high disarm skill, they can probably disarm the trap much more quickly. And you can even incorporate this into your more basic traps or your complex traps from last video. It's worked out really well, and my players thought it was a cool way to handle disarming of traps. Basically, how it works is you'll assign a number of disarm points, kind of like hit points, let's say 20. So this one trap, it's doing all its things. It's shooting poison gas. It's creating other creatures to attack the players. It's shooting web at them. And the players are going to go and try and disarm it. And now they're going to roll their disarm check. So you've assigned a DC to the trap. Let's say it's a DC 15 to disarm. The rogue character then rolls their disarm roll, and they roll a 27. So now they've done 12 points above the DC. So those 12 points are deducted from the trap's disarm points. Kind of like hit points. They're dealing disarm points damage to the trap. So now it's got 8 disarm points left. So that rogue character can try again next round, and let's say they roll a 20. So they've done 5 disarm points. So they weren't able to disarm it this round. It gets to go another round. And then on the third round, they roll and they succeed by the 3 points that they still needed. And boom, the trap is disarmed. Make sure you balance out the disarm points with the DC. It's important to know the skill level of your characters, because if their skill level is not very high, you don't want to assign a high DC and a high number of disarm points. Then it'll take forever to disarm the trap. So it's something that you want to definitely be familiar with their skill level. That way you can assign a decent amount. You know that in general, on average, they're going to succeed by 5 points, and you want the trap to last 3 rounds. Give it 15 disarm points. And if they succeed by more, they might disarm it in 2 rounds. That's cool. That's fine. They might disarm it in 1 round, if 2 players come in and do it. That's okay. But just don't make it overly difficult and make the trap last 20 rounds. That would just make it boring for the players. So it's a good balance. Just like any other combat encounter, you don't want to make it a 20-round battle. Same thing with these more legendary traps. The other thing that you can do is give the trap hit points, just like a creature. Like instead of disarm points, if there's no rogue in the party or no one with disarm rolls, what the heck? Give the trap some kind of pillar that needs to be destroyed to disarm it, and then have the players just hack at it while the trap keeps going every round on its turn. So it's almost like a creature attacking. It gets its attacks, its legendary actions. The players get to attack it. When it goes down below a certain number of hit points, then the trap is destroyed and disarmed, and the players get to move on their way. Trust me, these make for some awesome encounters, some awesome endings to dungeons, instead of the constant creatures every time or the constant boss every time. Something like this will add a different dynamic to a final fight, and the players, I think, will really enjoy it. My players have enjoyed it when I've done it for them. Again, don't do this every time. Keep it to a minimum. Maybe do it once in your campaign, and it'll be something that really stands out. It'll be a highlight of the campaign. I can assure you of that. All right, and that does it for the legendary traps. I hope you got something out of this. I hope that you do use them, and if you do, let me know how it goes for you. And if you have questions regarding this legendary traps mechanic, I'd be happy to answer them for you. In the comments below, it's the best way to do that. And that does it for the series. That does it for today's video. I am your Innkeeper Vase Odin. Thank you very much for watching. If you liked the video, please click subscribe and the bell so that you get notified. And I'll talk to you guys real soon. Take care.